Hi, this is Mike McWilliams. Tonight we're going to discuss on Upstairs to the Right Music channel about how to use strings in pop arrangements. Coming up next. Hi, this is Mike McWilliams and welcome to the Upstairs to the Right Music channel. Tonight we're going to talk about using strings in pop arrangements. Generally, when we think of strings in pop arrangements, we think a lot about ballads. Although there have been some fantastic rock songs that have benefited from having a string arrangement included in them. An interesting note, I found out that one of my favorite songs by Led Zeppelin, Kashmir, for years I really thought that was a real string orchestra playing in the background, but apparently it was played by John Paul Jones on an instrument called the Mellotron. The Mellotron was a very early playback sampler, and one of the sample patches that this instrument had was an orchestra. And so, just fantastic, amazing piece of technology when you're talking about the late 1960s, the early 1970s. So, not to get into a sidetrack, but I just wanted to say that the idea of using, or demonstrate that the idea of using strings from a DAW base, a sampler base, is not as new as we would think it is. Actually, as you can see in the example of that song, it's quite an old thing. However, we do have great technology available to us now to improve on those samples. My first piece of advice is suppling a library that you choose. As price is no option, man. There are some great libraries out there. They eat up a lot of memory space, so you might want to take a look at that. But there are some fantastic libraries out there that you can easily spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on. For me, I didn't want to spend that kind of money because I have other pieces of equipment in the studio that I need to purchase, so I have to be very budget conscious, but also I have to be conscious of quality as well. And I found with Spitfire Audio, there was a great balance between the price and the quality. And I mean, that quality is right up there with some of the other ones that I sampled, the samples that I sampled. I recommend Spitfire Audio. Take a look at them. Always, as I say, you know my mantra, do your homework. But for me, hey, they sound the best, and I've been using them for a while now. The next thing that I want to talk about when it comes to using strings in a pop arrangement is what works and what doesn't work. I attend the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam at least once a year. I go there. Kind of a pilgrimage for me, because I want to sit there and listen to a full orchestra playing. I get a lot of ideas from it, and also I get a real education from it as well about sound placement, where the different sections of an orchestra are placed. For example, in a string orchestra, you generally have your first violins, your second violins, your violas, your cellos, and your double basses, in that order, generally speaking. And if you know sonically where instruments lay, when you're working with them in a mix, you really are going to find that what works in a real life situation with a real orchestra doesn't exactly translate very well into a pop song. We kind of want to move that area to about here. We want to tighten the field of how we're going to spread out that orchestra backing, because sonically you don't want it competing with other aspects of the mix that you have going on. I'm working on a track where I've got an acoustic guitar here, I've got a piano part. I've got a lot of things going on within that mix, and I do not want to make the mistake of having something like my double basses running some line over here, taking away from where I'm trying to focus on that vocal, that rhythm section. So you want to keep that in mind. Another thing that I can say is you want to double your strings. When you're recording a string line, and you want to make sure that you also double it. Now, I'm not saying double it with octaves like I did there, but what I am saying is that you want to double those tracks. You want to always double everything that you do to get a lusher sound, and also a little trick that you can do when you're mixing. You can EQ and reverb or leave dry one of those sets of double stereo tracked strings. So this set of strings, this pass of strings, will be EQ'd slightly different and be have different reverb treatment on it than the duplicate set. These will be actually reverbed a little bit different, EQ'd a little bit different, or maybe left dry. You do that because we're again starting to build our sense of depth and also our fullness. And so you always want to double your strings, and then the interesting things that you can do from there. Let's talk about key ranges for the instruments that you will be composing for. With a string section, quartet for example, you're talking about the violin, the viola, the cello, and the double bass. Or the first violin, second violin, the viola, the cello, or the bass, depending upon how you want to arrange your instruments. Now, with each one of those instruments, one thing you want to do is you want to be aware of the range of those instruments. Violins are typically written within a range between G3 and A7. Viola between a range of C3 and E6. The cello between a range of C2 and C6. And the double bass between a range of C3 and C5. So it's very important that you know the range of the instruments that you're writing for. You want to also be aware of the different ways that you can arrange it again. As I said, you can substitute your cello for viola. There's a couple of things that you can do. Experiment with it, but again, do your homework and try to understand exactly the role of each instrument in a particular orchestrated piece. In the example that I have here tonight, we're going to be using Spitfire Audios. So I wanted to compose a piece that worked with a piano melody that I had come up with. I'll let you listen to it. So I wanted to write a string piece around that piano section that was a quartet and that had a lot of movement to it. Very simple. Chords. But I wanted to really get a lush, swooping full elegance to this section. So just to save time, this is the piece that I recorded using Spitfire audio. I don't want to get into EQing or reverb with this particular discussion. We'll talk about that at another date. I just wanted to go over some just basics. However, I do want to say that there are some great reverbs out there for strings available now. One of the ones that I'm using is the Abbey Road Chamber. That is a great little tool to use in order to get a very, very realistic string sound. I've got to tell you, work with it a little bit and you'll find out what I'm talking about.
Like the show? Well, show your support by